Hey, we're trying something new. I love the feeding the ducks music that we do in our little 2 3 minute run up to going live. Going live a couple of minutes before the start, and then actually coming live at half past the hour. And so we're going cold open. We're going to try a couple of things this week and just see how they work. So good morning, or if you're watching us on replay, good day. It's Fridays with Steve. I'm Steve Thompson. I'm the Senior Vice President of Sales and Marketing here at Apex Digital Solutions. And we're going to be talking today about Microsoft Teams and meetings in general, and some ideas that I have about tips and tricks and some ways to maybe accomplish and do some of your best work with regards to meetings. And so we're going cold open, right? And the other thing is I've sort of positioned my studio here so I can just better see the comments. Actually, one of the strange nuances of StreamYard is there's this shared panel for controlling the music, controlling those scrolling banners, and controlling the comments. And yeah, to be really honest, I'm really bad at being able to manage that as well as present and get through my thoughts for the day. And so what I want to try today is, as I'm talking about these things, I've just got some light slideware. And what I'm very interested in is going over to my Outlook and my Teams. I've got an innocuous week in the past, and so I won't be divulging any Apex classified data or any secrets. I have a couple of things I want to walk through, just some things that I do with regards to meetings. But I also welcome any comments or questions throughout the course of this first part, and when we get into the practicum, and I can try and address them live. If some folks in the audience remember Microsoft CIEs or customer immersion experiences, these were hands-on experiences with things like Teams or the Office Suite, SharePoint, security, even sometimes for IT folks, where we'd get hands-on and everybody would have the opportunity to experience it. While I can't give you all access to my calendar, what I can do is explore the questions live. One of my favorite things in CIEs, which allowed me to both seem smart as well as not know the answer to everything, is when a question would come in that I didn't sort of have a rote answer for, I'd be like, well, hey, let's figure it out together, right? So we'd all go into Teams, or we'd all go into, to Word and say, well, how does this exactly work, and kind of navigate it ourselves. And so I'm happy to do that again today. I'll be using the web versions of Outlook and Teams and exploring a few things. And so if you have questions, I might use that Jedi mind trick on you and say, hey, I don't know the answer, but let's see if we can figure it out together. And so I'm going to kind of just quickly or briefly talk about meetings in sort of these four buckets: thinking about organizing and scheduling, actually conducting the meeting, notes and action items, and kind of that post-meeting piece. I'll offer some thoughts. Sadly, I've been doing this a long time, and so I've kind of experienced a lot of the pros and cons of standing versus ad hoc meetings, or channel meetings versus personally controlled, or recordings and transcriptions and managing those, and why doesn't Stream do what I want it to do? And I have a lot of thoughts on that. I'll offer some of them unprompted, but if you have other questions or things that you want to do, just drop it in the comments. And I'm pretty sure those will flow through back to my production platform here. And then I'll do my best to see if we can address it, or, like I said, use the CIE trick and say, hey, let's figure this out together. So just let's talk about a few things when it comes to scheduling and some thoughts. One of the things that always irks me is when people request access to my calendar. Free busy data, as long as your Exchange administrator hasn't done anything kooky with your environment, is available to everybody, right? And so there's no access needed to be able to get that free busy data that comes right into the scheduling assistant. Or actually, you can even grab somebody else's calendar, look for a shared calendar, other people's calendars in Outlook, without any access, and just simply see free busy. You'll see gaps and you'll see busy, right? You'll have no insight into what those things are, even have a sense of whether they're, the type of meeting it is, but you can see that basic information without any additional permissions. I've made a lot of bosses angry in the last 25 years when they are like, I need access to your calendar. And I'm like, well, why? Well, so I can see when you're free. And I'm like, you can already. Free busy information is just a standard access piece. If you are working closely with peers, or if you have a strategy for the people that work for you in the organization or work with you in the organization, obviously there's different levels of access. I also try to be very thoughtful with my own calendar about transparency in a sort of opaque way. I try to be very thoughtful about when am I busy versus when am I truly out of the office. If you really want to mess with people's minds, you do the working elsewhere coding. Most folks, I don't think, use that or have their brains around it. I think it could be really useful as a hybrid employee, as a remote employee. Most of my time, using that actually helps. Hey, I'm available, but just know I'm not sitting at my desk, right? Or I'm available, but I'm on the road. And so I just try to be really thoughtful about those things. Most of my scheduling, I know I do in Outlook. We'll go into the native Teams piece because I think if there's only one thing you learn from this, it'll be something that's sort of only available when you go into the native Teams piece. But for most of us, it's using Outlook. Grab everybody's calendar from there. Look for the time to meet. I try to be thoughtful about reminders. I try to be thoughtful about details. And I try to be thoughtful about that last one, right? Now, Copilot can help us with agenda and pre-meeting tasks. I'm kind of a prickly pear. Maybe it's because I'm old, but I've been known to reject meetings that are just a subject line, some topic. And I'm like, well, what's our goal? What should I do to prepare? Right? I'll very sort of candidly ask, hey, what do I need to do to be ready? Note to self, the new mail ding goes off even if you're in the web client, as I have my Outlook shut down. So that wasn't something I was expecting there. And so I'm really kind of militant about that. I've worked in an environment, Microsoft, and I work with a lot of Microsoft people. I think even most of them would admit they've sort of, not in a mean-spirited way, but they've degenerated into an environment where you only work in meetings, right? You're booked from 8 to 5. And if you need to work on something or someone needs you to work on something, it's basically booking time on their calendar. I try and stay away from that. I try and respect, hey, when people aren't in meetings, they're working, they're doing their day job. And so I try to be very thoughtful about, hey, if we need 20 minutes, I'm only going to schedule 20 minutes. I might start 5 minutes past the hour and end early just so there's time for preparing for the next meeting or for getting back to work or responding to critical items. And what's interesting is we're so conditioned that my favorite thing is some of my one-on-ones start at 10:05 or 2:05, and invariably people will join at 2. Right. And it's muscle memory. Right. And so I love incorporating those things. And honestly, it gets people's brains working a little bit harder versus being on autopilot, not Copilot, but autopilot. In our environment, we also have a lot of Teams rooms. And so it is a absolute best practice in our environment, to invite the Teams room simply because it also schedules the room. And makes it, not only books the space, but makes the device ready to go, one-touch join, and all those kinds of things. Weird quirk of I've been surprised by the lack of post invite meeting management in rooms. Like once a room is booked for something, it isn't real easy to get it off the calendar. So something to just watch for, as you continue to adopt Teams rooms. So the meeting itself, obviously, again, we do a lot of our work in rooms, and so joining with the room itself is preferred. You can also join yourself and do the proximity join, whether it's Bluetooth or ultrasonic. Meetings, the devices can sense who's close, and so if you're in the act of joining a meeting, that sensor goes off and it says, "Hey, you seem really close to this room." Frankly, sometimes it says, "Hey, you seem really close to multiple rooms, so be careful." You want to just join with the equipment that's in this room. That is really, really easy to do. I try to be thoughtful at the beginning of the meeting with, hey, do we need captions? Do we need transcription? Do we need recording? We're finding some nuances, especially with meeting recaps in Teams Premium, as well as Copilot, around the necessary things you have to turn on. I think so far my experience is that you need that recording going. I would like to think there's something on the roadmap to say record this meeting, but only for Copilot purposes, only for recap purposes. Otherwise, you end up with a whole lot of MP4 files laying around in Stream. There's a lot of advanced functionality that's come to the meetings themselves, popping out content, new views, max gallery size views. I was in a meeting last night on an alternate platform, but with the same capability. There are 200 people in it. I'm like, just show me a gallery of 4, the current speaker and the last 3 people to speak. Everything else is overwhelming, right? So, options like 4 and 9 and 16. Which, now that I think about it, makes sense because it's 2x2, 3x3, 4x4. I was kind of wondering how they came up with those numbers. Math was a long time ago. And so, use those controls smartly, and control the meeting. I think this kind of goes back to scheduling a little bit. And one of the things I want to show people in native Teams is that be thoughtful about what kind of meeting you want, right? I was back at Microsoft in the day when we acquired Live Meeting and some of the other technology that became all of this stuff, whether it's OCS or Link or Skype or whatever, has led us to this point. And there's options for controlled audiences. There's options for full collaboration, and I still see people, let's turn on full collaboration, all the mics and all the video for a 400-person meeting. That's kind of a crazy approach. Use the whiteboard. We have a partnership with a company called Frameable. I'll plug all 3 of their products in the actual meeting itself. It's their whiteboard and multi-share. Their whiteboard has a few different pieces of capability. It's a little bit friendlier after the fact. It's got nested lists. It's got other capabilities, above and beyond the whiteboard that's built in. Let my team know if you'd love to see a demo or interested in exploring the Frameable applications. It's also got this piece called multi-share. It's got some really cool use cases. The easy one maybe to get your head around is, imagine one person proctoring a virtual lab with 15 people in it. Each one of those people with multi-share can share their screen, kind of giving the proctor the ability to look over their shoulder, but only one is sort of available at a time. But you don't have to stop sharing, reshare. Hey, can I share? We've all been through that in meetings. And in a scenario like that, the proctor can peek in on, desktop 4, and desktop 5 is having a problem. Hey, let me highlight the person on desktop 5 and let's work through this issue they're seeing so everybody can see it. And so there's some interesting use cases there. The late joiner with Copilot can say, hey, what's happened so far? What did I miss? And so there's interesting use cases even within the meeting itself when it comes to Copilot. We'll talk a little bit more about the post-meeting pieces here in a second. Meeting notes, taking those notes right in the meeting and have it live with the meeting, as well as the chat, right? I think we're all pretty used to the chat when it comes to, capturing important information during the meeting, and being something that sort of lives on as an asset, as part of the meeting itself. Generating tasks using Planner and To Do. I guess I'm not going to wade into this debate. There's 47 different ways to skin the cat when it comes to project management, planning, tasks, to-do lists. There's a lot out there. What's funny is even with all the stuff that's out there in Microsoft 365, there are a lot of organizations, and I'm not begrudging them or saying it's a wrong decision, that still say, hey, I'm going to use Asana, I'm going to use Trello, I'm going to use Monday. I get it. There's so many ways to accomplish this. Know that some of the things that Microsoft does has hooks into the meeting. And then when it comes to Copilot, the recaps, we've got Teams Premium that can offer meeting recaps. We've also got Copilot. Know that the meeting organizer and what licensing they have, whether it's Teams Premium or Copilot, has a lot to do with these capabilities. Oftentimes that last one is what I end up doing. So I'm very happy that I have access to Copilot for M365 and the ability to use it each and every day. One of the things I found myself doing is taking those recaps and those to-do lists and adding them into my own meeting follow-up so they're available to everyone. And then when it comes to post-meeting, sharing recordings and notes, obviously, if you go back into meetings you've had, you've got the tabs for recaps and transcripts and recording and all of those kinds of things. Sometimes they can be hard to find. Oftentimes, if there's a pop-up in the chat, it'll come to the top of your chat history. This is also a plug for Overview from Frameable. It actually has a separate tally of meeting chats, right? So it really, rather than having a single chat feed, it breaks it up into 3 feeds. It's got one-on-one chats, it's got group chats, and it's got meeting chats. And so because of that, the latest and greatest of all of those three sort of categories boils to the top and makes it much more discoverable. My team has started using Loop a lot more. I'm a Loop newbie, and so I don't have a lot to say personally in this space other than I like what I see. I see these Loop components inserted, getting updated in real time. Really a great way to get live content into a meeting, into a chat thread, and being able to really enhance the sense of collaboration when it comes to what you're doing. So the survey piece, again, 112 ways to skin the cat. Even in our small organization, we have multiple ways to sort of take the pulse of the organization or get feedback. And so know that some of those are incorporated well into Teams meetings. So what I'm actually going to do here is I am going to present a different, I have to stop my screen for a second, so I'm going to get bigger. And now I am going to take a look at an innocuous view of the past when it comes to my calendar. And so this is back in November of 21. You can see there was just a leadership team meeting. If I remember correctly, this is actually pre-Apex, but some of our meetings have very, very old start dates, and so they show up here. And so I hopped actually into the Teams piece because I want to make sure I have time enough to get to it. We'll leave the Outlook piece for the end. So here's the one thing that if you get nothing else out of it is that Teams meetings have lots of different capabilities. Part of the challenge, I think, right out of the gate is discoverability. And there's a down arrow next to new meeting. And this is where you get that ability to access the advanced meetings in Teams. This is where you have to go to do that. I would like to think that the folks that aren't using webinars or town halls are doing that consciously because it doesn't make sense for them. It doesn't fit their meeting type. Fair enough. I think there is a non-zero population that simply doesn't know how to access those. And so we have we have 5 different templates now available in Teams. We have a webinar. We have town halls. We have virtual appointments. And this one is interesting. We just now kind of expanded our bookings capability and how we're using bookings as an organization. This is another way kind of adjacent to skin that cat. And so, it's kind of up to you. I've already found some bookings shortcomings. It's not really like organizational bookings. It's someone has to create it, and maybe they create it for the organization, but it lives under their M365 sort of world. They can make other people admins, absolutely, but at the same time, it's sort of tied to a person. And so I was kind of looking for it more to be at the organizational level. So there's some challenges with bookings too. Controlled content meeting. This one was new to me when I expanded the list yesterday doing some prep work, right? I'm like, let's take a look at that together here in a second. And then live event, which has been around for a while. Live events have really, evolved into town hall. We recently had a town hall, so I'll just kind of launch this real quick. You can see, it's designed for large audiences, but it's a rather constrained thing. So our organization of 30 people, 35 people, when we do a town hall, it's, a tad more casual, right? We open it up for voice questions and raising hands and things like that. So when we explored town halls, we said, it's a little too constrained. This is really designed for, the presenters are in a central location. They might have individualized content. There might be videos you want to bring in. And it really doesn't allow for some of that collaboration. So you've got organizer levels, co-organizers who have the same functionality, but then the presenter level, this ability to add external presenters. We've got some access control. So, a town hall can be made public and be shared. We can invite, I'll just say marketing or something like that as my attendee. We've got some theming pieces. There we go. We can do logos. We can do theme colors. We can do a privacy statement. We can customize invitations and recordings. We can edit what those say when they do go out to all the attendees. On the back end, we can see reports, attendance, engagement, all of those kinds of things, and be able to manage our recordings after the event, publish them, preview the email, all of those kinds of things. So I'm going to go ahead and cancel this event. And then please don't go back to, so I'm a little nervous when I navigate away from this. Is it going to go back to my calendar in the modern day? And of course it is. So I'm just going to quickly do this and say controlled content meeting. And so here we've got something that looks a little bit more familiar, but this is bringing up the sort of the content controls. They're always accessible, but most of us don't think about these, right? We don't think about recordings and being able to, see all the slides, engage in the chat, all of those kinds of things, and bring those controls to the front for having a much more sort of constrained meeting. Again, this gets back to my frustration in the early days, especially with the acquisition of Live Meeting. Live Meeting even had a sort of a pictograph of an audience, right? And it showed how many people were sitting in seats. So there'd be 100 seats. If you had 58 people in the meeting, it would show 58 little icons in seats. They'd be green if they were fine. If they had a question, I think it was yellow or red, go faster, slow down. It was really kind of that large audience paradigm. And most of the controls were built for that. Then over time, it morphed to everything is a collaborative meeting. And so you can see all of the pieces here that you can control for everybody, being able to really lock down something that sort of looks and feels like a more normal meeting. And then the last one I wanted to take a quick look at is webinar, right? So this is really designed with external in mind. We can see the same principles we had with the town hall. We don't have the ability to there's one level of event access missing here. It's escaping me right this second, but we've also got built-in things like presenter bios, right? Just real easy ways to sort of embrace what it looks like to make a public event, right? So I'm going to say I'm presenting me, and then when I come to presenter bios, it's interesting. You have to save your changes as you move around, right? And I've got this ability to go ahead and fill all this stuff out and really give it that external webinar feel right from native Teams. And so I do have one thing I want to hit on over on the Outlook side, and it's just because I have a personal mission in life. Sorry that I'm looking down, but I've got to make sure I get the right stuff shared here. All right. So again, we can see we went back to that innocuous point in time when it comes to my calendar. I suppose you guys can freeze frame it. No, I didn't. Dang it, I said that. But I don't think there's anything really bad on there. So if I do new event, obviously we're used to these kinds of controls. Interesting, when I say new event, just generically, it says, well, I'm going to make it for the current day. So I guess I have to highlight something and do new event right here to make it blank. All right, we learned something. All right, so again, second, if there's only one thing you get as a takeaway, so this is something I do for my boss. I do for my direct reports, which is Steve's going to be gone. And there's several things that you want to do when you're going to add. So you guys saw one of the people that works with me is Brittany. So I'm just going to add her. Look at that. Schedule with bookable time. Not interested. And I'm going to say this is an all-day event because I'm just going to tell her I'm going to be out, or I was out on November 1st, 2021. So I like to say just like out or something like that for a location. I don't necessarily add any detail, I might give my team some extra detail, but here are the three things you want to do. So we set it for all day, but there's a couple things you want to make sure it's free. I can't tell you how many times I get these reminders that somebody is going to be out, and it books my time, right? It says busy, it says out of office. And because of that, all of a sudden everybody's calendar is booked. The next thing I do is turn off reminders, right? I want this to be on their calendar. I don't want the reminder popping up. It defaults to 18 hours before. And so if you have an 8 a.m., it's sort of end of day. I've had instances, though, that if people have the reminder set to at the time of the event, I've gotten midnight, Tim's going to be out of the office reminders. And obviously in the era of smartphones, all of a sudden something's going off on your nightstand. The last thing I do, and just to be aware of, that you can control these response options. Maybe I don't necessarily want everybody to know I'm out. It's really meant for just my team. The other thing I do is turn off request responses. I don't need to see whether they accept or deny it. I give them the ability to answer the question of where's Steve, and leave it at that. If they accept it, great. If they don't accept it, great. I don't really need to know. It just removes a little bit of email clutter. Someone in the comment noted that when you start typing a location, it fills it in. I typed out. It looks like it grabbed Outback Steakhouse, which might be an interesting vacation. I'm not sure I could spend a couple of days there. Only so many blooming onions that you can eat. So that's a few ideas about approaching some meetings best practices and my thoughts and some of the things that kind of either bug me or I have top of mind when I think about this stuff. So we're here to help. It's funny, a lot of times on our engagements, we might be doing some high level migration or Teams adoption or voice work. But it's the little things that our team knows and can bring to the table, honestly, that sometimes really make a customer super satisfied. So if you're a customer, reach out to your account executive or just drop me a note, sthompson@apexdigital.com. Reach out to our sales team. Check out our website. We've got lots of content like this. Check out the Fridays with Steve archive. I've talked a lot about interesting things, especially around Teams, especially around modern work, as it's what we really specialize in. So hopefully you got one thing you took away from today's event. Let me know in the comments after the fact what you thought of cold open versus being able to hear a little bit of music in the run-up. And have a great day. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time.